And good morning. Good morning. Sorry about we started a little late this morning, and it was just I hit the wrong button. I was sitting here waiting for the intro to run up to where I would switch over, and I realized, hey, wait a minute, it didn't actually start streaming yet. So as I'm sure you can tell from the tighter angle, Cameron is not in the studio with us this morning, but I do have him on the phone. Morning, Sunshine.
Morning. We're going to try this today and see how this works.
Okay, I think I'm going to dial your audio up just a hair. There we go. All right, so I hopefully
can't see any comments or anything, so hopefully.
Well, since you can't see the comments, I'm going to say good morning to everybody. Scrimshaw Rose has first blood and says good morning to you by name, Cameroon. Pitt Danny's with us, and the Fit Life with Danielle is with us. It's Monday, so she's probably got... I haven't actually looked yet, Danny. I'm sorry, but I suspect she's got a new video out this morning. Jeff Goldblum's Silent Farts has, in fact, found a way into our chat again this morning. Welcome, welcome. And I see GCM with an FTP. And there's the Sergeant Major. He says, go dogs. And Trish, good morning. Good morning. So, today, yes, today is, it's the last game of the Dogs' perfect season. Is that...
Well, to be fair, it could be the last game of Texas Christian University's perfect season as well. Like it
will in fact be the last game of both of their perfect seasons, one way or the other.
Yeah, I was about to make that same observation that either way, the perfect season ends today. Kickoffs at around 8 o'clock on ESPN.
And that's 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time for us?
Yes, the Lord's time.
The Lord's time, that's correct. EST is like EST. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I promise if God has a time zone,
it's not California.
That's correct. That's correct. And you could say, well, that's New York time. Well, no, I promise. God's a whole lot more likely to base that on like Atlanta than he is New York. I assure you.
I never met anybody who said they were about to retire and move north.
Right. No, I want to pay high taxes and have to shovel my driveway from November to February. That sounds perfect.
So, is there anything that you want to say about the game, about the Dogs, before we get into other stuff?
Just that if they win today, that will be the first time since the early 2000s a team has won back-to-back national championships. It's already extremely rarefied air to win a national championship ever. To even make it to the national championship game and lose. I mean, you have to be the best of the best. There is no question about it. Back-to-back championships are almost unheard of. Alabama has dominated the national championships for the past several years, and this is not the first time Alabama has dominated the national championship scene. And Alabama does not have back-to-back national championships. So all that to say, to give the perspective of what Georgia has a chance to accomplish today is to move into a category where you could count the number of teams who've done it on your fingers. And that's pretty darn impressive, I think.
Yeah, that's a good take, absolutely. So what's the other news we want to talk about this morning?
Well, I mean,
before I hang up on you and do some memes.
Well, I mean, it's Meme War Monday, and while I would love to be part of the meme dump itself, and hopefully you have memes about this, because, well, we have a speaker.
We do. We do indeed. After, what was it, 15 votes? So,
I think it took 15, yes.
how many games did Georgia win this year?
Not 15.
And they certainly didn't lose that many.
No, not even close.
You to talk about
fact,
somebody
I
that
think-
just can't bring it together in clutch. McCarthy, God. Okay, so we now have a Speaker of the House who's bad at winning. That just does wonderful things for my heart. I'm sure it does the same for you. I will give McCarthy some credit. Back in December, he did complain, for as much as that's worth. He did say that the omnibus is a slap in the face of every American. Going on to detail the exorbitant amount of money that was spent on the omnibus and the fact of it being 41. In fact, here's a quote from him. Guess how many pages it is? 4,155 pages of pet projects, pork, and progressive priorities. Guess how much it costs? $2 trillion that we don't have. And guess who wrote it? 2 retiring senators who won't face accountability from voters. Guess when it was made public? In the dead of night at 2 a.m. on the Tuesday before Christmas. This monstrosity is one of the most shameful acts I've ever seen in this body. The country's tired of it. How do I know? They told us last month. Now, McCarthy was planning on riding a red wave into a powerful majority in the House that should have, in theory, made his rise to Speaker an almost foregone conclusion. But the fact of the matter is, we saw what happened with the midterm election. And it's this simple. Establishment Republicans like McCarthy sabotaged up-and-coming new red blood because they're afraid. They're afraid of what it means to get non-establishment MAGA-type candidates into any level of government. They're terrified of what it means to have people get involved in government who are opposed to inflated, psychotic spending and the intentional destruction of the U.S. energy markets. And that's how we ended up where we are.
That's a large part of how we ended up where we are. And look, just to take a big step back, okay? Not a big fan of Kevin McCarthy. Also, not a big fan of Matt Gaetz. Okay, this is definitely not a cult of personality. I'm not going to comment on Lauren Boebert because she's a MILF who shoots things, and I understand that shorts out my male brain in a bad way.
Yeah, she's kind of in our wheelhouse.
Yeah, that's a very, very nice way to say it. So anyhow, but I actually view everything that happened here as a win. This was the process working. This is the process working correctly. I would go so far as to say the concessions that were extracted out of Kevin McCarthy are amazing. Let's see. Just to give some examples, the House has got to hold votes on conservative bills, things like balanced budget amendment, congressional term limits, and border security. And I'm not Pollyannish enough to think that those will automatically win, but it is a step in the right direction, and it will get people on board, and we'll see what bills that actually address those problems can look like. So it's moving the ball down the field.
Yeah, and I've got a graphic up now that lists some of the better concessions that were taken from McCarthy in order to secure the votes to make him Speaker.
Yeah, and then the other one that I think that is really, really, really important, there's two that I think are huge. The appropriations bills, the 12 spending measures of Congress, are going to get voted on separately instead of in an omnibus bill.
Correct.
And that all by itself is a huge, huge win.
Yeah, like I was telling Dad when we were talking about this yesterday, I said I could take Nancy Pelosi as Speaker of the House in perpetuity for that single concession right there.
Yes. So there's also going to be 72 hours of review before bills come to the floor. Like, hey, speaking of Nancy Pelosi, do you remember we have to pass the bill to find out what's in the bill? I mean,
yeah, she stuck right to that, didn't she?
Yeah. I mean, what kind of bullshit logic was that? Well, that's exactly what it was. It was bullshit.
Yeah, I have to take a shit tomorrow morning to see if I had corn today.
Yes, every time you use that analogy, I'm like, ugh, but it's not entirely inaccurate. Now, the thing about any member of the House can call for a motion to vacate the Speaker's chair, I'm actually not as excited about that one. I can see how it could be abused and highly disruptive. To be fair, I understand how the old rule was abused because it wasn't disruptive enough. I think this is one of those, we're going to have to see how it plays out, and then going forward, we'll decide which poison we'd rather take.
Oh, no. Hang on. Let me push back on you a little bit on that one. The single-member vote to oust the Speaker, the single-member vote, they keep calling it a single-member vote to oust the Speaker or to vacate the seat, to vacate the chair. That's a misnomer. What it is a single member can call for a vote.
I understand.
No, hang on a minute. But the thing I want everybody to pay attention to and remember is that it was not the case that any individual member of the House could call for that vote of no confidence to vacate the chair. That has only been the case since the beginning of Pelosi's speakership. She made that rule. She created that rule and put it into place. And prior to Pelosi as Speaker, that was always the way that the rules worked. Any single member of the House of Representatives could call for a vote to vacate the chair. That doesn't mean that any single member, and I'm not explaining this to you so much, Cameron, as to the audience for clarity. I know you understand this part of it. That does not mean that a single member has the power to remove the Speaker. It means that a single member has the power to initiate the process. Initiating the process does not equal removing the Speaker from the position. But the thing to remember is, and this is where I'm pushing back on you, Cam, is you're saying that we'll have to see how it plays out to see which way is better. We've seen how it played out. And the way that it's played out is for the entire history of the United States of America, that's how things were done. And it has been an extremely rare case that a speaker has been bad enough or managed to cause enough problems to generate the interest in a single member calling for the vote of no confidence until Nancy Pelosi, who was engaged in so much corruption, graft, and active personal support of anti-American terrorists like Black Lives Matter, that she absolutely could have generated the interest in making that in one single member calling for her ouster. And it never happened under her reign because she created a rule to prevent it. So, and then the rest of that is, or kind of another way to say all that is, it's important to remember that Nancy Pelosi created the rule to prevent oversight from tackling precisely the kind of corruption that she was engaged in, and that oversight was designed to prevent and eliminate.
I'm not disagreeing with any of that. Whenever I'm,
well, of course not. It was brilliantly phrased.
But what I'm saying is we live in a pre-Donald Trump world and a post-Donald Trump world. Okay, Donald Trump is going to be one of the great dividing lines in American politics, period. And one of those things is before, politicians would always say, oh, politics is a blood sport, politics is a blood sport. but then they would all be nice and, oh, let's follow the rules and have some decorum. Like, you know, they wouldn't actually call the ugly baby ugly. And then Donald Trump came along and was actually willing to say, you know, the ugly baby is ugly. So, yes, Nancy Pelosi changed the rule to her benefit, obviously, but it almost didn't matter beforehand because either somebody was going to be so obviously corrupt, so nakedly so, that they would have a vote of no confidence called on them, or everybody was going to play and be nice and act like they were buddies and would never stab each other in the back because, of course, they all want power. They've all got egos and so forth and so on. That was all I meant. Like, in the post-Donald Trump world where calling the baby ugly gets you attention, this could easily be abused.
No. There is some fairness to that, and it would not be unreasonable to mention in the same context the Donald Trump's two separate, distinct impeachments, which tells us, excuse me, because remember the impeachments they originate in the House. They're voted on in the House, and that moves the procedure to the Senate, where people like Mitt Romney are given the opportunity to commit political treason to no one's surprise. But much like Donald Trump's impeachment, I will grant that there is likely room for abuse with the system where anybody can call for the ouster. But let's not forget, it was also the case that there were still people who could call for the ouster. All this does is extend that authority to the rest of the House instead of retaining it within the higher ranks where the corruption is most likely to occur. And I say most likely to occur based not on reasonable assumptions or logical proceedings, but on simple historic observation. That is where things like Pelosi's open trading secrets occur. But much like the several attempts to, and okay, keep in mind, Donald Trump was actually impeached twice. Right? No, I'm sorry. That's not correct. He was actually impeached once. That impeachment failed. The second impeachment didn't pass the House, did it? It didn't make it to the Senate, right, Cameron?
I thought both times it managed to make it to the House.
Did they make it? Okay.
It failed in the Senate.
Well, either way, back to the point that I was making. There were two of them that actually got voted on in the House, and at least one of them made it to the Senate where it failed. But prior to that, let's not forget, it'd be worth pulling the records on every Democrat that was in the House during the administration of Donald Trump to see if we could find any that didn't attempt to bring an impeachment. There were at least a half a dozen of them that filed articles of impeachment literally on the day after his inauguration. So from the very beginning of it, you'll hear the Democrats talk about Donald Trump's a sore loser for questioning the outcome of the obviously most secure election in history that didn't have any fraud at all. But let's not forget, the minute he was inaugurated, they started filing articles of impeachment with no cause whatsoever. So there is obviously room for abuse in any system that occurs within the nation. But I still think that much like a gun, the safest hands are still our own.
Look, agreed. I'm just saying that we'll have to see. I'm not as excited about that particular provision as I am about some of the others. The ones that I'm I'm big on board with is the 72-hour rule, the 12 appropriations, and the fact that we're going to get on the record votes about term limits and debt ceilings and balanced budget amendments and stuff like that. So that's all of that is huge for the conservative movement. It's one of those things where it doesn't look very flashy, but if you go into what the elites, if you go into the policy wonk territory, oh man, all that stuff is red meat. Like,
yeah, and let me just add to that.
Got an erection like 6 feet tall right now. Like, that is libertarianism on steroids, baby.
And let me add to that. This is very interesting to look at kind of the way that the sausage is made. Ro Khanna tweeted, we talked about this last week, Ro Khanna tweeted that he would deliver enough Democrats to make the difference for McCarthy if McCarthy would concede, would make two explicit concessions, one of which was that there would be no debate on raising the debt limit. It would just be done. And the other one was to limit GOP subpoena power, because, frankly, the Democrats are scared to death that a U.S. House of Representatives that's in GOP control is going to actually start investigating things. So Pitt Danny says, today we get rid of 78,000 new IRS agents. I'm going to need to know a little more about what you're referring to there, Danny, because if that's the case, that's great news. But I'd need.
Oh yeah, you heard this? Yeah, like they're going bye-bye.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, look, when you're created with a pen, you can be eliminated with a pen. Well, it is what it is. It's a good day. It really is.
Okay.
Anytime you have fewer IRS agents, I'm 100% on board. I wanted to say this about the 72-hour rule, and then I have to stop pretending like I'm not at work, hiding in a cubicle somewhere.
I just got this image of you as Neo, ducked down behind the cubicle, holding a shitty old 90s cell phone up to the side of your head, waiting for me to tell you when to dodge the feds.
Right.
Go now.
And look, my name's even Anderson, so there's
I know
that.
Mr.
Okay.
Anderson.
Yeah, I've been hearing that joke for decades.
I know. I've been telling
that
joke. I've been telling you that joke for decades. I like to think I backed off of it a few years ago.
Okay, so 72 hours. While it's good that we have something there, because previously there was zero, and
right.
as discussed, like we have to pass the bill to find out what's in it, just being utter bullshit. Even 72 hours is not really enough.
Right, you're asking every member of Congress to read a 5,000-page bill in 72 hours.
Well, even a 500-page bill. Right?
To read it and understand it enough to form a reasonable and intelligent opinion.
Exactly. And that is not enough time. In a lot of ways, that's still a slap in the face. So the fact that is considered progress tells you a lot. It honestly makes me think of the Don't Say Gay bill in Florida, where it's like, well, why do you need somebody to tell you that sex education for third grade and under is probably inappropriate? And it's like the same thing here. It's like, why do you need somebody to tell you that let's just say you had a bill that was 100 pages, okay? I won a few days with that, especially knowing how I process legalese and how so many of these bills are going to be like, oh, and then reference subsection paragraph 3-C in relation to appropriations measured. That might not even be on the bill. So then you got to go pull the whole other piece of legislation.
Right, exactly. 5,000 pages is not 5,000 pages. It's 5,000 pages with another 5,000 pages worth of references and collations. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a bizarre. It's like a choose your own adventure book. Only it's not fun and it destroys the country, right? So, I mean, let's be clear. That 72 hours is still an absolute slap in the face, but it's literally 72 hours more than was required. Like, I would imagine that it should be at least a week. Because even if you had your whole staff, like let's say you have a half a dozen people and yourself, and you're going through the bill, because of the way things are tucked in, and there's so many things that are conditional and clause related, you could still do all kinds of pork, all kinds of crap. So I'm calling it a win. But the fact that it's a win is a slap in the face. I just wanted to stress that point.
It's a tight win. It's not the win you want. It's constitutional carry. It sounds a hell of a lot better than it is. But if you're excited about it, you're missing some of the key points. Right. Yeah, I'm excited that it's slightly easier to exercise my constitutionally guaranteed right. Oh dear. But they just have you in that slave mentality, don't they? Yeah. All right. Well, brother, it's actually 8 o'clock. It's time to kick you off the phone whether I wanted to or not. So,
all right, y'all have a good day.
I think we had a good chat this morning, and I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Cameron, I will talk to you soon.
Yeah, all right.
And
let's have a nice day.
Later, guys.